Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving into a real doozy, the coming wave, technology, power, and the 21st century's greatest dilemma.
Wow, yeah, that's quite a title.
It is, and you chose it, so
I did. I'm excited to dive in.
me too. And this one is by Mustafa Suleyman, who you probably already know.
Oh, yeah?
He co-founded DeepMind and is currently, I guess, the head honcho of AI at Microsoft.
Yeah, running the show over there, so.
So not exactly an armchair theorist, this guy.
No, definitely not someone who is, speaking from experience for sure.
Yeah, and this book has been making some serious waves, so to speak.
It has. I mean, even Bill Gates is calling it his favorite book on AI this year.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been pushing it hard on GatesNotes, saying,
Really?
it's super relevant to what's happening right now, so.
So we're dealing with a book that's got some serious street cred here.
Yeah, you could say that.
What really struck me is how Suleyman frames the whole thing right from the start.
Okay.
He starts by talking about how humans and technology have always been intertwined. This idea of homo technologicus,
Right.
It's like we're hardwired to invent,
Yeah.
to build, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
We can't help ourselves.
But he's arguing that what's coming next is, well, big.
Yeah, yeah,
Different.
yeah. He focuses on two main areas. AI, obviously.
Right.
And then this whole field of synthetic biology.
Okay.
On the AI side, he's talking about artificial general intelligence, AGI.
Mm-hmm.
That point where AI could actually reach, maybe even surpass human-level intelligence. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that for a second.
Yeah, it's like science fiction becoming reality right in front of us.
It is. And then on top of that, you've got synthetic biology.
Right.
The ability to literally engineer life itself.
Wow.
It's like we're not just using technology anymore. We're starting to become it.
Yeah, in a way.
That's exactly the point Suleiman's making, and it's not just some abstract future either.
Okay.
He gives all these crazy examples, like DNA printers becoming as common as inkjet printers are today. Imagine being able to print out custom DNA sequences for medicine, agriculture, you name it.
Okay, but here's where my alarm bells start going off.
Uh-oh.
If we're talking about technologies this powerful, how on earth do we control them?
Yeah.
This is where the dilemma part of the title kicks in, right?
Right. Suleiman calls it the containment problem.
Okay.
And it's the central thread running through the entire book. How do we prevent these incredible advancements from becoming weapons?
Yeah.
From being used to harm people or even destabilize entire societies?
So what's the answer?
Well,
Does he even offer one?
he does, but it's complex.
Okay.
He lays out these 10 steps for containment.
Yeah.
And some of them seem pretty straightforward, like global collaboration on safety standards,
Yeah.
or more funding for research on the potential dangers of these technologies.
Makes sense.
But then he gets into some really radical ideas.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, he actually argues that AI companies should be legally required to dedicate 20% of their entire research and development budgets to safety research. That's huge.
Yeah.
It means saying, okay, profits are important, but safety has to come first.
Right.
I'm not sure how realistic that is, but it definitely gets you thinking.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement. But then isn't there this weird contradiction in the book? He lays out all these steps for containment,
Yeah.
but then also says it's virtually impossible.
Yeah.
What's he getting at with that?
That's one of the most fascinating parts of the book.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from the difficulty, even the potential impossibility of controlling these forces we're unleashing.
Right.
Some critics, like in a recent Guardian article, are calling him out for that. They're saying, look, this is all well and good, but in the real world, corporate greed and legal loopholes are going to make true containment incredibly difficult. They basically accuse him of being naive, of underestimating the forces that are driving this technological acceleration.
So are they right? Is it all just a pipe dream, this idea that we can actually control these forces?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think Suleyman pretends to have all the answers.
Okay.
But what he does offer is a framework for thinking about the problem,
Right.
a roadmap for how we might navigate this incredibly complex landscape.
Okay, so we've got this big, maybe impossible challenge.
Yeah.
But what does it mean for us right now?
Right.
Like, what are some of the specific risks we should be worried about in the next few years?
Suleiman gets pretty specific about that.
Okay.
He paints this picture of 2025, so literally right around the corner, where we're facing things like massive AI-powered cyber attacks that could cripple entire countries.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about a level of disruption and chaos that's hard to even imagine.
Okay, that's scary. And what else? What other things are keeping him up at night?
Well, he's also deeply concerned about the rise of misinformation and deepfakes, AI-generated content that's virtually indistinguishable from reality. Think about the potential for political manipulation, for eroding trust in everything we see and hear.
It's already happening.
It is. That's something that's already happening, but he thinks it's going to get exponentially worse
Yeah.
as these technologies get more sophisticated.
So it's not just about rogue states or terrorists
Yeah.
using these technologies for nefarious purposes.
Right.
It's about the erosion of truth itself,
Yeah.
the potential for chaos and distrust to become the new normal.
Exactly. And then you layer on top of that the economic impacts.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about widespread job displacement as AI and automation take over more and more tasks, potentially leading to massive unemployment and social unrest.
We're already seeing those anxieties playing out.
Right.
People worried about their jobs, about being replaced by robots.
Absolutely. And it's not just blue-collar jobs either.
Oh, right.
He argues that even highly skilled professions like law, medicine, and finance are going to be disrupted by AI. He doesn't shy away from the potential for social upheaval, for a world where the gap between the haves and have-nots becomes even wider.
So we've got these incredible opportunities on the one hand, but also these really dark, almost dystopian possibilities on the other.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process, honestly.
It is. And I think that's why this book is so important. It's forcing us to confront these questions head on, to grapple with the implications of what we're creating.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, the choices will be made for us.
Right. And they might not be the choices that we want.
Exactly. And it's not just, about rogue states or terrorists using these technologies.
Right.
He's really concerned about how these tools could be used by any authoritarian government.
Oh, yeah, to just consolidate their power even more.
Right, to create these incredibly sophisticated systems of surveillance and control.
It's like that classic sci-fi trope
Right.
of the all-seeing, all-knowing government using technology to control its citizens.
Yeah.
Except now it's not science fiction anymore.
Exactly. Suleyman argues that these technologies could fundamentally change the balance of power, both within societies and between nations, and he's particularly concerned about the erosion of democracy,
Right.
the potential for these tools to be used to silence dissent and suppress individual freedoms.
It makes you wonder if any of this is truly containable.
Yeah.
Or are we just kidding ourselves?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, think about the internet.
Right.
It started with so much promise.
Yeah, this idea of democratizing information, connecting people across borders.
Right, and to some extent it has done that.
Yeah?
But it's also become this breeding ground for misinformation, for hate speech, for cybercrime.
Yeah, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right, if we couldn't fully control that, what hope do we have of controlling something as powerful as AGI or synthetic biology?
Right. It's like we keep inventing these amazing tools,
Uh-huh.
but we don't always think through the potential consequences.
Yeah, we get so focused on the what that we lose sight of the why. And that's a key point Suleyman makes. He argues that we need to shift our focus
Okay.
from just creating technology to shaping its evolution.
So it's not about trying to stop progress.
Right.
It's about steering it in a direction that benefits humanity
Exactly.
as a whole.
As a whole, yeah.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we make sure these technologies are used for good, not for evil?
Suleyman outlines 10 steps for containment, as he calls it.
Okay.
But the one that really struck me is this idea of building ethical considerations into the design process from the very beginning.
So it's not just about having rules and regulations after the fact.
No.
It's about building in safeguards from the ground up.
Exactly. He talks about the need for moral crumple zones in AI systems, for example.
Moral crumple zones.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
It's like the crumple zones in a car
Right.
that are designed to absorb the impact of a crash and protect the passengers.
Right, to make sure everybody's safe.
Right, except in this case, the crumple zones are designed to prevent AI from causing harm, even if it's given instructions that could lead to unintended consequences.
I see. So it's like anticipating the potential for things to go wrong
Yes.
and building in safeguards to prevent those worst-case scenarios.
Right, and it's not just about the technology itself either. It's also about fostering a culture of responsibility among the people who are developing and deploying these technologies.
So it's about education,
Yeah,
ethics training,
absolutely.
creating a sense of shared responsibility.
Yes, a sense of shared responsibility for the future.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Okay.
Even if we manage to build in all these safeguards, even if we create this culture of responsibility,
Yeah.
can we really be sure that these technologies won't be misused?
Right.
that someone somewhere won't find a way to exploit them for their own gain.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think anyone has the answer.
Yeah.
Suleyman certainly doesn't claim to, but what he does offer is a framework for thinking about the problem, a set of principles that can guide our actions as we navigate this uncharted territory.
I'm curious, reading this book, did you come away feeling more optimistic or more pessimistic about the future?
You know, I think Suleyman is cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
He believes we have the capacity to shape the future of technology, to harness its power for good, but he's also incredibly clear-eyed about the risks,
Right.
about the potential for things to go terribly wrong if we're not careful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right approach. We need to be aware of the dangers, but also hopeful about the possibilities.
It's like walking a tightrope, isn't it?
It is.
Balancing this incredible potential with the very real risks that come with it.
It is, and it's a tightrope we're all walking together.
Yeah.
Because these technologies are going to impact every aspect of our lives, whether we like it or not.
Right.
So we all have a stake in making sure they're used responsibly.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to chew on.
Oh.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of what this book has to offer.
That's true, but I think we've touched on some of the most important points.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've given you some food for thought, because this isn't just an academic exercise.
Right.
These are real-world issues that we need to be talking about, debating, and ultimately making decisions about.
Decisions that will have consequences for generations to come.
Exactly. And one of the things Suleyman emphasizes is the importance of public engagement, of having these conversations not just in academic circles, but in our homes, in our workplaces, in our communities.
It can't just be left to the experts.
No.
We all have a role to play in shaping this future.
Absolutely, because in the end, technology is a tool.
Yeah.
It's up to us to decide how we use it and what kind of world we want to create with it.
So what's the one thing, the big takeaway that you want our listener to walk away with?
Okay.
If they could only remember one thing from our deep dive into the coming wave, what would it be?
I think the most important message is that the future is not predetermined.
It's not something that's just going to happen to us. It's something we're creating collectively through the choices we make every day. And those choices matter. They have consequences. So we need to be informed, engaged, and above all, intentional about the kind of future we want to build.
That's a powerful thought. And I think it speaks to the urgency of this book, the need for us to really grapple with these issues now before it's too late.
Exactly. Because the wave is coming, whether we're ready for it or not. And the question is, will we be swept away by it, or will we learn to ride it?
You know, it feels like we're standing on the edge of something really massive here.
Yeah.
This isn't just about, cool gadgets or the latest tech trends.
Right.
This is about the fundamental forces that are going to shape the 21st century and beyond.
It is, and that's what makes Suleyman's book so compelling. He's not just talking about the technology itself. He's talking about the philosophical, the ethical, even the spiritual implications of what we're creating.
He keeps coming back to this idea of homo technologicus.
This inherent drive within us to push the boundaries of what's possible.
We can't help ourselves.
It's almost like technology is an extension of ourselves, a manifestation of our collective consciousness.
And that's where it gets really interesting, because if technology is a reflection of who we are, then what does it say about us that we're creating these incredibly powerful tools that could potentially destroy us?
It's a sobering thought for sure.
It is.
It makes you wonder, are we smart enough to handle this much power?
Yeah.
Are we wise enough to wield these tools responsibly?
Those are the questions that keep me up at night.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are any easy answers, but I do think it's crucial that we're having these conversations, that we're wrestling with these dilemmas.
Because ignoring them won't make them go away, right?
No, they won't. The wave is coming, as Suleyman says.
Right.
And the question is, are we going to be ready for it?
And readiness doesn't just mean having the right technology or the right policies in place, right?
It doesn't, no. It also means having the right mindset, the right values, the right sense of shared purpose.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well,
How do we cultivate that mindset, that sense of shared purpose?
I think it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to be teaching our kids and ourselves about the ethical implications of technology, We need to be fostering critical thinking skills, encouraging people to question assumptions, to think for themselves.
Because blind faith in technology is just as dangerous as blind fear, right?
It is. We
Hmm.
need to find that middle ground, that balance between embracing the potential while acknowledging the risks.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to remember that technology is not deterministic.
Right.
It's not some external force that's controlling us.
Yeah. We have a choice.
We're the ones who are creating it, shaping it, directing it.
Exactly.
So we have agency.
We do.
We have the power to choose the kind of future we want to create.
Exactly. And that's both empowering and terrifying because it means the responsibility ultimately lies with us.
So what's the next step? What can our listener do right now to start making a difference?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed. Read books like The Coming Wave,
Mm.
engage in conversations like this one, challenge your own assumptions, and be willing to have your mind changed.
It's about being an active participant, not a passive observer.
Exactly, because the future is not something that just happens to us, it's something we create together.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about, and hopefully you've inspired our listener to take action because the choices we make today will determine what kind of world we live in tomorrow.
I agree, and I think that's the ultimate message of The Coming Wave. It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the coming wave. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you'll join us again next time for another exploration of the big ideas that are shaping our world.
Until then, keep those minds curious and those questions coming. The future is waiting.